Hey guys, and welcome back to another review. We are going to be talking about One Piece chapter 950, and it was pretty enjoyable, I'd have to say. It covered a lot of ground, it got us set up basically for a number of things, showed us where different people are, and I'm kind of glad that they showed us where specific people are, then I'll get to those, because they're people we haven't really seen in a little bit, and I think it's interesting to see where some people are kind of branching off after all of the Udon prison stuff, and as well as what was going down at the execution of Yasuye. So it's kind of cool to see some people doing their things now that everything's kind of said and done. So first off, Kid and Killer, I'm going to get them out of the way. They were the first thing in the chapter to begin with anyways, but they are kind of going off on their own. Kid's pretty pissed off about what happened to his own crew and Killer and everything. But apparently there's some flashback panels, and it seems like Luffy basically offered, hey, you want to join our crusade against Kaido? And Kid said, screw that, we're not doing this. I'm going off on my own. I don't care what you're doing. I'm going to get revenge or something. And him and Killer just take off. I don't care for them. Anybody who says that Kid and Killer and their whole crew are up there as far as oh, they're super cool. They are awful people. They're terrible. You have Luffy and the Straw Hats. They've risen to fame, and they have are widely known as pirates and whatever, and mischievous and whatever. But and they also have their high bounties and whatnot. But they don't kill people. They never actively go and attack people. Kid and Killer and their entire crew, they rose to fame because they're violent and terrible and awful. And if you want to look at them as a villain, fine. But they're not anything but villains. They are no better than Kaido or any of the others. They're just not as strong or as powerful in general. So I don't want to hear anything about that. Kid and Killer can go off on their own. Whatever. Speaking of our old pal Luffy, though, he is in a heap of pain. Last chapter, he basically got himself infected with the virus that burns your entire body up. And, well, it's burning his entire body up. He put up a good front about how, oh, he's got it, whatever, he's tough, and he's tried to get people's attention, and it did get people's attention. But now he's in agonizing pain, and Chopper's rushing to get an antibody and a thing ready for him so he can get cured. And Chopper's not happy about it. As one as his friend and as two as his doctor, he's pretty pissed at Luffy. And, well, he doesn't get pissed at him very often, but when it comes to his medical needs, he really does not care for Luffy throwing caution to the wind and basically getting himself in a heap of trouble. Meanwhile, even though Luffy's in so much pain, he's basically picking a fight with Momo, and Momo's taking the bait, and Luffy ends up calling him, weak and, cowardly and all that, and, he would never, Momo would never take the virus into himself because he's a weak coward, and that basically, Otoko has to keep reminding him, hey, wait, don't frickin' touch him, he isn't gonna be trouble, don't do it. Come on. So there's a really good, funny exchange between Luffy, Chopper, and Momo going on all off to the side as everything else is kind of settling in the prison. Meanwhile, the prisoners are energized now. They did like Luffy's speech and all of that jazz, but they now are realizing that he is a pirate, and because Kaido is a pirate, and all of the other pirates around them are, generally pretty bad, they have a hard time trusting Luffy and his crew, which is honestly to be expected. They've lived a pretty large chunk of their time around pirates that are just, nasty and mean, so it's kind of hard for them to believe that, a pirate would be, happy and nice and chill and just kind of generally good. So it's up to basically Raizo and Old Man Hyo and everybody around them, all of the people that are in the know, to basically be yo, listen, Luffy's chill, everybody calm down, Luffy's a good guy, he's not like Kaido, he's not like Kid, he's not like all those other jerks. He is a pretty chill guy, but it's just not quite getting through. This is until Momo basically has to run away from Luffy, who's doing whatever he's doing. He's flailing because he's in pain or because he's just acting like an idiot. And he runs away from Luffy, and all the prisoners turn around and see Momo. Part of the reason why they're not really trusting Raizo and his word to everything is because Raizo apparently always kind of looked like an old man. So it's hard to believe that he didn't age if he looks like that already. So basically seeing Momo and seeing him as a young kid was like, oh, so they really did come from the past, and it's all like that. So they all bow to Momo, and now they have an army. They're pretty set now, and everything's kind of coming together. They had some trouble getting an army together because it was the whole secrecy thing, and then all those people got thrown in jail. But now they have a whole prison full of people that are all gung-ho to take down Kaido. One little thing that I actually did not fully read, or read at all during my first read through of the chapter. I'm glad that I went back and kind of like skimmed through, because I didn't even read this panel. It was on the bottom part of that whole spread, and it's basically just Kawamatsu being like, hey, listen, I got somewhere to be now that I'm free. He was in prison, so he's got somewhere to be, and he'll meet up with them before the big invasion and all that. I'm wondering where he has to go. I forget whether, like, I have such a poor memory for this kind of stuff, where it's like, they talked about Kawamatsu a lot prior to him being revealed fully, but I don't remember whether he had, like, a family or friends or something like that he wanted to go see, or, like, people that mentioned him. So he's got somewhere to go, and I'm wondering where exactly that is. Maybe it's even like a grave or something like that. Maybe he feels guilt because he's been in prison for so long and he couldn't help people. And speaking of graves, Shuten Maru has taken Kinemon as well as Dogstrom, Inuarashi, to a mass... It's not a burial because they're not really buried there because they all presumably died off of Wano, or Wano proper anyways. But it's basically a mass graveyard, and it's all the people that basically died during, or a large chunk of the people that died during the 20-year span between Momonosuke, Kinemon, and all them people going from the past to the future and everything like that. So it sounds like during that time period, so there's a little bit of a conflicting feeling as far as like how to handle themselves during that 20-year span. Some people, like Shuten Maru, are like, we gotta wait for Kinemon and Momonosuke and all those people to come back because we need a good solid army to fight Orochi and Kaido, and we're not gonna be able to do that without like Momonosuke and basically our main peeps. So we gotta bide our time. But there was also a faction of people that were like, listen, 20 years from now, we don't know where we're going to be at 20 years from now. For all we know, we're going to be weak and, like, old. We got to do this while we're, like, young and chill and we're, like, strong. So 10 years into, like, this, like, 20-year span, a large chunk of samurai and, like, soldiers went off to Onigashima only to die because they were not prepared. They didn't have the numbers. They didn't have the leadership. They didn't really have anything that could help them stand up against Kaido's crew or Orochi's armies or whatever. So they all died, and that's really kind of awful, and that kind of really hits Kinemon a little bit because it's just like, well, he was gone basically. He had nobody's at fault here because it's not like they really like knew what was gonna happen, but like it's kind of hard to know that a bunch of people died while you were being sent off into the future or whatever, and it's a hard pill to swallow. But of course, Shuten Maru has his like kind of bandit people, and obviously Inuarashi and his crew around, so they've got people that they could fight with, along with now all the people at Udon Prison. So they've definitely started to amass an army of their own, and now that they have their kind of headpieces, they're in really decent shape to take on Kaido and Orochi. Inuarashi and Shuten Maru even make a joke about like, oh, well, they've had 20 years to prepare themselves and to get stronger, and Kinemon's just like, listen, you old people, you better not freaking hold me back. So there was kind of like, they ended like kind of a serious moment of sorts with some joking around, which is pretty One Piece. Moving on, we then get to see Zoro slashing up some ninjas and doing whatever. So clearly they got away from all the hullabaloo at the execution site. But they are now hiding off in a little like kind of like house area thing. And their goal is to go get back Shisui for Zoro. He needs his 3 swords. I don't know whether he'll ever get it back for sure. Maybe he'll pick up one of like the like other legendary swords that are in Wano. But their current goal is to go get back Shisui from that like robber person at the bridge. So they're kind of doing their thing. And a few things from this whole little section of the chapter. One, they are a very cute couple. Like I honestly, I have a hard time expecting any of the Straw Hats getting into couples, at the very least, like, sit down, like, oh, they're gonna settle down, they're gonna part ways from the crew, and they're gonna go live whatever. I mean, maybe they will. Maybe you got Sanji going off with, I don't know, who has he seriously gotten with? Maybe Pudding or something like that. Sanji is a weird person because he hits on every girl that is around him, so it's kind of a weird situation. Pudding's also a weird situation because she's still part of Big Mom's whole kingdom, so that's weird. But maybe Zoro would be with Hiyori? I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about the Straw Hat crew basically settling down and starting families because they're all kind of wild people. Either way, Zoro and Hiyori are kind of a cute couple. I gotta say that. 2. Zoro mentions that he wants to get revenge for Tonoyasu or Yasuie. Hiyori not only agrees with him in general, but also says that she wishes she could kill Orochi herself. So that's kind of an interesting idea. I don't think she would do it. I don't think that, like, even if she, as a character, would want to, I don't think she would. I think also she wouldn't be in that right spot. I don't think she'll be anywhere near that kind of thing. Not that Orochi might not even die. I don't know. Maybe he'll rot in prison or something like that. But it's definitely an interesting idea because she's shown that she is pretty tough on her own, even though, like, she's not tough. She's not, like, pirate tough. But she's pretty tough in general. She's stood her ground or whatever. I think she punched Orochi at one point. But she's pretty tough, so it's kind of interesting to see, like, that she has, like, so much pent-up anger that she would be willing to kill somebody. But yeah, they're together. They're going to head to the bridge to get Zoro's sword back. Moving on to the final part of this chapter, which is honestly pretty hype. The other parts were, like, kind of funny or just interesting to see. But this part is pretty hype, and it sets us up, hopefully, for the next chapter, because I want to see what happens here. But it's Hawkins and Drake chatting at like a prison or something like that. And at one point, so I'm going to come back to this for a second, but apparently Drake is acting weird. And then they kind of say, oh, whatever, let's just move on with this. And they are going to interrogate Law, who previously to this chapter, a number of chapters ago, we saw him fighting Hawkins, but because Hawkins had his crew basically held capture and whatnot and all that, he couldn't really do anything. So I imagine he maybe didn't put up much of a fight, and they captured him, and they beat him up, and now he looks all disheveled or whatever. But he does have a very defiant look on his face, so he looks like he's scheming. He looks like he's got something up. And their whole thing is that he's going to tell them everything. He's going to tell them their plan, why he's dealing with Straw Hat, what they're doing up, just all of basically everything that's going on. And first of all, I do not think he will. Second of all, because I think he's got something cooking in his old noodle, I think that there is going to be some weird stuff. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to address as far as Drake goes. And those things first, one, so he's acting strange. They made a point of saying this, and I don't think that it's just a throwaway line. I think that there is something up with Drake, and I think it's either going to go into one way or the other. And one way could be that he's going to end up working with Law, and they're going to turn on Hawkins, who, by the way, has a very, like, serious and angry panel that makes him look like he's really just sick of all this shit. Maybe sick of the idea that he's basically Kaido's lapdog, but I digress. Either way, I think, so either one, Drake is going to end up working with Law, just out in the open, and that's why Lost looks so defiant and, like, conniving, because he knows that ultimately he's going to be chill and fine. Or I was actually watching Rogers Base's stream, and somebody in his chat mentioned that maybe Law, during all of their scuffling and all the stuff that was going down, swapped Drake, like, his personality, with somebody else. And so the reason why Drake is acting weird is because he actually isn't him. And then they'll use his body to break Law out of the prison and all that jazz. And so that's actually a really interesting thing. We wouldn't know who it is until we see it happening, because all of that, basically, the battle happened way off screen. We were too engrossed in the Udon prison stuff. So it's an interesting idea. So I think it's either going to be that, or it's going to be Drake just straight up, like, betraying Kaido and Hawkins and all that. So that's the entire chapter, more or less. For the characters, there is just over a week, 8 days before their invasion plan goes off. So they have a lot of planning to do, a lot of organizing to do. At this point, an army is basically theirs. They have a lot of people at their disposal. They just need to kind of organize themselves. Kinemon and Shutenmaru don't know that all of Udon Prison is basically going to be part of their army. So they have their people. Luffy and Old Man Hyo and the others have their people. So they just need to get themselves together so that when the time comes, they can take on Kaido and Orochi, which, even with all of these people, it honestly seems like a really tough climb for them. Kaido is so strong, and the only reason that Queen was taken out is because Big Mom showed up. And even then, Big Mom now has her, like, senses back to her, so she's gonna be a problem. Well, those are my thoughts on this chapter. What did you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see more from me, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. That way you'll get all the notifications when I upload. I will see you guys in another video. So long!